Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, June 10th. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District to order. Superintendent, if you can call roll, please.
Yes, sir. Ms. Lofthouse.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Chalem-Shurla.
Here.
Ms. Larrett.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. We will start off with the land acknowledgement.
As the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, we acknowledge that our administrative facilities and schools occupy the unceded territory of the Nisenan and Miwok, the original people of the skies, land, and waters where we work and learn.
We also recognize the presence and ancestral stewardship of the Nisenan ancestral tribes, the Esto, Natamuse, and Nisem Paiwanan to the north, and the Miwok ancestral tribes, the Amakumne, Consumne, Hapumne, and Makumne to the south along the Great Sacramento River systems at time immemorial.
Right. We understand that in this land upon which our institutions are built was once flourishing with natural resources and sustained by ancestral knowledge and practices of the indigenous communities.
We acknowledge the injustices of colonialism and attempted genocide that have impacted these communities and recognize the resilience of their descendants who continue to thrive today.
In our daily endeavors of teaching, learning, leadership, and community engagements, we commit to supporting and respecting and honoring their culture, traditions, and life ways.
We pledge to work together for the evolving vision of the Miwok and Nishinan, especially all future generations.
All right, thank you. Now we will lead into the pledge. And if I can have Board Member YK Charmanchella lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. A broadcast statement and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel. The recording will be cablecast as replays on Metro Cable Channel 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast and DirecTV UVerse cable systems. The recording will also be closed captioned and video streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. The Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and ask the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities and communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and/or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meetings are an important component of public engagement and transparency. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their speaking time to another member of the public. All written comments submitted by 2 p.m. today to the board have been read per the Brown Act. The board is not allowed to enter in a two-way discussion on any matter not on the agenda. With that, I will welcome a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move.
A second.
Moved by Board Member Lofthouse, second by Board Member Charmanchella. Superintendent?
Yes, sir. Ms. Lofthouse.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Chalem-Shurla.
Aye.
Ms. Larrett.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Right, thank you. And with that, Superintendent, let's go into item number 3, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release, Government Code 54954.5. The board will hear charges against a classified employee in open session as requested by the employee at issue, CM.
Absolutely. I'd like to invite Kim Kingsley-Bogart of Kingsley-Bogart Attorneys to the podium to begin the conversation.
Good afternoon. So I wanted to start with, I've been asked to start by setting the stage for what's happening tonight. These don't happen very often. So for tonight's meeting, the purpose is for the board to consider the decision of the recommended termination of Mr. Conrad Mayer, a classified employee of the district. Mr. Mayer was served with a notice of termination back in February of 2024, and he requested a formal evidentiary hearing. The district invited Mr. Mayer to mediate the case with the assistance of a neutral mediator assigned by the State Mediation and Conciliation Services. We met 2 times, and unfortunately, no resolution was reached. Pursuant to board policy and administrative regulation 4218, the board contracted with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and that office assigned an administrative law judge. His name was Sean Gavin, and he's a licensed attorney in the state of California. And he heard the matter and provided the board with a written recommended decision in this matter. The hearing was conducted in February 10 through 13 of 2025. Mr. Mayer was represented by legal counsel, Ms. Lloyd from Mastagni and Holstead. And at this hearing, Mr. Mayer was permitted to submit evidence in defense of the allegations against him. In this case, ALJ Gavin has recommended that Mr. Mayer be terminated from his employment with the district. So in a conversation with the superintendent and with the board president, the following is my understanding of the process for tonight's meeting. First, the board will ultimately review the ALJ Gavin's recommended decision to terminate, and then they will decide, you will decide as a group, pursuant to your board policy, to do one of a number of things. You can adopt the proposed decision in its entirety. You can reduce the personnel action set forth in the proposed decision and adopt the balance of the proposed decision. You may reject a proposed reduction in personnel action, approve the personnel action sought by the complainant or any lesser penalty, and adopt the balance of the proposed decision. You may also reject the proposed decision in its entirety, and as to any of these actions, the board may order that additional evidence is required through a hearing process, which would occur subsequent to tonight's meeting. What the board is not doing tonight is taking additional evidence, not hearing witnesses, and not accepting documents that are not in the record. So your job, according to the administrative regulation, is to look at what's in the record in making your decision. Mr. Mayer has asked that this matter be heard in open session, and to honor that request, first, we would ask Mr. Mayer to give him the opportunity to address the board for up to 10 minutes. Your board policy does not have any obligation, create an obligation for Mr. Mayer to address the board, but it's the feeling of fairness that is an appropriate approach. After Mr. Mayer makes his statement to the board, I will summarize the record for the board. The board can then take public comment pursuant to your board policy, and thereafter you would adjourn to closed session to deliberate on the matter, and you would be accompanied in closed session by superintendent, your associate superintendent, your director of compliance, and myself as legal counsel in order to provide you with procedural guidance. And then finally, you would report out on any decision that you make. So from here, if that's an acceptable process, from here, shall we have Mr. Mayer address the board if he so wishes?
You may. Thank you, Ms. Bogard.
One last thing before you start. To the extent that folks are addressing the board tonight, if we would please not use student names unless it's the name of your own student, just for student confidentiality. Those names are sealed in this particular record.
Good evening. I was not aware that I was going to be given 10 minutes. I was trying to keep it 3 minutes. I know I can use 10 minutes. I've been told that I can talk for a long period of time. I wasn't aware that I couldn't give these out to each and every one of you. They're the 80-plus letters that were written in approximately 72 hours at one of my earlier hearings. Let me step back. Good evening, Board President. My name is Conrad Mayer, and for over half a century, I've committed myself to supporting the students and community of Rancho Cordova, especially those who needed a champion the most. I have been involved in many programs from Scout, PTAs, Rotaries Interact, to the newly formed, it's not new anymore, it's about 15 years old, the Cordova Lancer Leaders and Legends, which I was asked to form a mentoring group under their tutelage by our school district called MOC, Mentees at Cordova High. I've mentored and helped hundreds of under-supported students and families working hand in hand, and they will tell you this has been my life's calling, and the impact is seen in the lives we've changed together. I want to address the heart of the matter, though. I have always stood up for what's right, even when it meant challenging others, youthful and adult as well, especially board members, current and past, who, in my view, my willingness to speak the truth to power has created real animosity. But I will always do so, as that is how I was taught, raised, coached, mentored. And our students need someone like myself to talk for them, especially today. The allegations against me are simply not true. If they were as serious as the district claims, serious enough to end my career, ask yourself, why did the district offer me thousands of dollars to quietly go away, as they have others? If I was guilty, that is not the action of an organization confident in its case. This is not about protecting students. It's about removing a voice that has held this district accountable for 20 plus years that I've known. After years of pushing for what's right, this manufactured crisis is being used to silence me and dismantle a program that works and that you asked for. They asked me to do so many things they use for their WASP reports, their community outreach, other school reports, parent engagement protection. Then after years of speaking up, they want me out. Not just out, but gone, never to touch the campus of a Folsom Cordova Unified School District again. You should have teamed up, but instead you tried to push me out, and like others before me, but you stomped on the things that I cherish the most. That is where I'm drawing the line. My grandfather, who served with Martin Luther King in Birmingham, Alabama. My father, who served 25 years in the Air Force and in civil service at the Sacramento Army Depot. My mother, who was the blind bell ringer at the Salvation Army for 25 years because our family was in need at one time. My community, who is here tonight, that I love so much. Thank you. This is a district effort to rid themselves of a community do-gooder. If this is what you want, it will have to be here, where witnesses, my friends, family, classmates, and community, where they can witness how education has been more about some of you than it's been about our kids. We too keep receipts, Lancers for life. And I just want to add that 2 days before I got dismissed, I had a group of 50 girls on that campus that wanted me as their advisor for their dance crew. And me and Miss Teacher at Cordova High School started meeting with them. And obviously, we didn't form that group. I also had fights that occurred on campus at Cordova, and my name was heard in the video as Get Mr. Mayor. And that's how much those kids there trust me. And to know that I can't be involved anymore kind of sets my retirement pretty much in first, second, third gear. So I just want you to know that's what you're losing. That's what you could have teamed up with if you decide to continue on this course of dismissing me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Bogart?
Oh, no problem. At this point, I'm going to summarize the facts and the decision for the board and the audience based on the request to have this matter heard in open session. I want to give you a small roadmap about where I'm going in this conversation. First, I'm going to cover the allegations that were made against Mr. Mayor. From then, I will cover the defenses put forth by Mr. Mayor. Keep in mind that this is a multi-day hearing, so this is an overview. It's not an exhaustive list on either side. I will then provide you with the broad-based findings of the ALJ, and finally, I will follow up with the ALJ's analysis so that folks can better understand how or why the decision was reached. So let's start with the allegations. At hearing, the district put forth student and adult witnesses to prove that Mr. Mayor continuously sexually harassed 5 female students and created a hostile and offensive educational environment. The facts were that Mr. Mayor began sexually harassing 4 students in or around their sophomore year of high school when they were only about 15 years of age. A 5th student was harassed in her junior year of school. Testimony by these 5 female students consisted broadly of the following. Mr. Mayor sought personal connections with these students outside of school and unrelated to his role in the mock program. Mr. Mayor sent 2 students friend requests on Facebook. After the students accepted Mr. Mayor's friend request, he stated to both of them at school he thought they were going to, quote, make him work for it. For a 2-month period, Mr. Mayor liked almost all of one of the students' posts on Facebook. Mr. Mayor also asked students for their phone numbers once he told the student that it was wrong for her parents to have taken away her phone because now he couldn't communicate with her. Mr. Mayor offered more than one student on more than one occasion a ride in his personal vehicle. In one instance, he offered a student a ride home from cheer practice. Once inside the car, Mr. Mayor told her that he noticed her from her cute little ass, and he told her that the time of day was called rape or kidnapping hour. A student told Mr. Mayor that another campus monitor was really cool, and to this, Mr. Mayor responded, he might just want you, implying sexual attraction. Mr. Mayor yelled out to a couple of students on campus that were kissing, that he should get them a box of condoms. More than one student reported that on more than one occasion, Mr. Mayor looked at their body in a sexual way. This was described frequently as looking up and down the body or staring at the female students through the mirrors on the golf cart that he drove on campus. More than one student testified on more than one occasion. Mr. Mayor made comments about their relationship with boys. This included statements to the effect of, he's lucky to be your boyfriend. You're lucky to have a boyfriend. I thought you would be going to your boyfriend's house. You can have any boy you want because you're so pretty. Do you want him? You're going to end up opening your legs and getting pregnant. Boys are looking at your boobs, and that boy wants in your pants. So more than one student testified that on more than one occasion, Mr. Mayer made statements that implied he had a sexual interest in them. These included statements to the effect of, if you didn't have a boyfriend, if I were your age, it was kind of hot how you can just stop everything and go handle that. More than one student testified that on more than one occasion, Mr. Mayer commented on their body or clothing. This included statements to the effect of, you look good in that skirt, you should wear tighter fitting clothing. On that instance, shortly after, Mr. Mayer told the student that he got her a scholarship, which she did not apply for, and offered her $500 in cash. Then he made statements to the effect of, now you can go buy new clothes, which she interpreted as to buy tighter fitting clothes. You should show off your pretty face more. I can notice that big butt from anywhere. Use your pretty nice chocolate legs. Using pretty girl as a nickname. Use your pretty white legs. And I recognize that cute little ass. The campus monitor also testified that Mr. Mayer pointed out girls on campus and the way they were dressed and said, quote, they looked like they wanted to get fucked, end quote. The following words were used by students to describe how Mr. Mayer's conduct made them feel. Was uncomfortable, disgusted, weirded out, grossed out, creepy, fearful, scared, and unsafe. Mr. Mayer's defenses in his closing brief were that the district failed to meet its burden of proof. The district violated his due process rights by failing to provide video footage of a CHS campus in a discovery request. Also alleged that the student witnesses were not credible, that the alleged misconduct is out of character for him, and that the alleged comments do not justify his termination. The allegations of the students resulted in 11 causes of action and a statement of charges. The ALJ dismissed 4 of those charges and found insufficient evidence for falsifying information, incompetency, dishonesty, and other good behavior. The ALJ upheld the district's personnel action to terminate employment on the other 7 causes of action. That includes neglect of duty, insubordination, violation of district policy and procedure, willful disobedience, discourteous treatment of students, immoral conduct, and unlawful discrimination, including harassment. And the next piece, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the ALJ analysis. I think it's important to understand the why behind the ALJ and why he found the findings that he did. I'm going to simply read some excerpts from the decision itself. The judge said that the district witnesses and respondent maintained respective versions of events that are largely incompatible with one another. And although there are some documentary evidence, most of the case focused on witness testimony. And as a result, witness credibility is central to the result. And so you can see in this decision that credibility is where he focused much of the decision-making. He noted that respondents' character witnesses were not persuasive. Many of them refused to accept even the possibility that respondent could have made any of the alleged comments, and that such unwillingness to entertain the possibility that respondent might have engaged in some portion of the alleged wrongdoing revealed a bias that undermined the witness's credibility. Moreover, although many of the witnesses had opportunities to observe respondent interact with children at mock events, none of them were present during any of the misconduct alleged in this matter. As such, their opinions are entitled to little weight with regard to their assessment of respondent's character. He goes on to talk about the credibility of students and Mr. Mayer himself. He said each of the district witnesses testified in a straightforward and forthright manner. More importantly, they each shared details that were sufficiently consistent with one another to support their credibility, but not so identical as to suggest collusion or fabrication. Many of the student witnesses related substantially similar accounts of respondents' behavior. For example, multiple students shared respondents' comments about them being pretty and suggesting they use their pretty little legs to walk around campus. 2 students credibly testified that respondent made comments about recognizing them based on their ass. Multiple witnesses agreed that respondent commented on students' appearance and clothing, and Mr. Parker, an adult with nothing to gain or lose from the outcome of this matter, buttressed the student's testimony when he confirmed respondent said some of the children, quote, looked like they wanted to get fucked, end quote. On the other hand, respondent's denials included several inconsistent statements. For example, he initially denied giving students rides, but later confirmed that he did so. Moreover, he clarified that he only gave students rides as part of the mock program, but then admitted he gave one student a ride home and offered another student a ride, neither of which was related in any way to mock. Similarly, respondent unpersuasively explained his comments about the students' clothing was part of enforcing the school dress code. To be clear, although the school's emails instructed staff to enforce the dress code, respondent's comments went well beyond that directive. Instead, the credible evidence is that respondent remarked not just about students' clothing, but about how their bodies looked while wearing that clothing. Furthermore, the student credibly testified that respondent encouraged her to wear tighter clothing, which was not covered by the dress code at all. Consequently, the persuasive evidence established that respondent engaged in the acts of misconduct alleged in the statement of charges, and the district therefore established by a preponderance of the evidence that cause exists to terminate. So that's my summary of the case, and unless there are questions, you can move on to public comment.
Any questions from the board?
No.
No questions? All right, thank you. All right. I'm going to address the public comment. Items pertaining to special meetings, only those public comments related to a specific item on the agenda will be heard. Such comments will be received as each item is addressed at the meeting. Time will be given to speakers at the discretion of the board chairperson. I had only thought of giving 20 minutes, but we have a full room, but we do have board business after this. It is customary for me to hear everyone, but at this point in time, I don't think that's going to be feasible. However, I would like to entertain a motion to expand it to 40 minutes instead of 20, doubling the time to give folks more opportunity to speak. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Lofthouse.
Mr. President, I'm not sure how many out there in your hand. I do agree we have another business to go. At the same time, it's a credibility. As a newbie, only 5 months into this role, and this has been going on for the last close to 18 months. Is there a way you can extend kindly a little bit more time? I just want to see, how many out there.
How much it takes.
Actually, give me a time here. If I extended it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, Madam Vice President, could you tell me how long that would take?
How many are there?
Looks like 43,
So 86 minutes.
86 minutes.
But that was before we added a few, so.
Absolutely. We do have our board workshop and we do have our facilitators. Are they okay with allowing 90 minutes of public speaking and we continue with our board workshop after that, after we come out of closed session? All right, I do need a consensus.
I agree.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll go 90 minutes. That should give folks time. I would love to hear their comments at 2 minutes. So that should get everybody in. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You are very welcome. I'd love to hear the comments. So with that being said, I will welcome to the podium, Councilmember David Sander. And following David Sander will be Valeria Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I unfortunately have prepared 3 minutes, so getting to 2 on the spot will be a little challenging. I'm here tonight to speak out against a grave injustice, one that has harmed not only a respected member of our community, but also our students and the very fabric of Rancho Cordova. This wrong wasn't committed by one person or by a conspiracy. It's something that is more troubling. It's the failure of a bureaucracy. A system meant to ensure fairness instead has used its own rules to silence and punish. Due process isn't being upheld, it's being weaponized. Tonight, you will hear from voices across Rancho Cordova, elected officials, nonprofit leaders, educators, business people, religious leaders, and parents, and perhaps most importantly, students. All are in defense of a community hero who has been unjustly targeted. Bureaucracy has its place. We rely on it to run our institutions. But when that bureaucracy replaces its mission with self-success and turns internal instead of external, it loses its place and it begins to attack anyone who rocks the boat or becomes a threat to the institution. That's exactly what has occurred in this time. Low expectations are a serious problem at Cordova High School, where Mr. Mayor works. From a district leader saying, quote, "This is Cordova, not a Cadillac campus," or to a school leader at the highest rank telling volunteers that their work isn't needed because these kids don't deserve it. Chronically low expectations is our challenge. Even your own empathy report at Cordova High School says staff who speak up are punished. This isn't new. In Rancho Cordova, we're used to this. What's happening to Conrad has happened to perhaps a dozen before. But now it's Conrad, a Cordova High grad, a Lancer for life, a civic leader who's virtually won every award we have to give in Rancho Cordova. I've seen it firsthand. I've been there with them. I've seen your
Thank you,
employees.
sir. His 2 minutes has expired. Thank you.
I've seen your employees bend employment rules. I have been barred from testifying about this in his supposedly
Mr.
fair
Sander.
hearing, which was more like a show trial.
Thank you, Mr. Sander.
If you wish to do justice,
Thank you, Mr.
do
Sander.
right, not wrong.
Valeria Aguilar, followed by Conrad Mayer.
If I could have all of the students come up, please. My name is Valeria Aguilar, and I am a recent graduate of Cordova High School. I first met Conrad Mayer when I was in 4th grade. My mother often spoke highly of him, praising his deep care for students, strong moral compass, and unwavering dedication to the community. When I had the privilege of meeting him myself, it quickly became clear that everything she said was true. Since then, he has grown to become one of the most influential role models in my life. I quickly learned that he exemplifies what it means to be a great leader. Because of Mr. Mayer and the mock program, I am living proof of the powerful and positive impact it can have on a student's life. Mock was created to mentor and uplift students facing challenges, providing them with guidance, support, and hope. It exists to keep students on the right path or to help them find their way back to it. He has always been there for me, whether it was a ride home after a volunteer event, a place for me and my family to stay while the AC broke in the middle of the summer, or even a job when I was too young to legally work. A good mentor is supposed to check up on you, guide you, and support you. I'm incredibly proud to be a Mock alum, but even prouder to call Conrad my mentor. He is a true inspiration, not just to me, but to many others in our community. Just look around. On December 12, 2023, I was called out of my history final and directed to the office. When I arrived, I was informed that I needed to speak with Assistant Principal, Miss Carrie Jackson. Once inside the room, it was just the two of us present. Miss Jackson handed me a document and asked me to sign my name. As I held the paper, I began to read the list of questions printed on it. One question I distinctly remember was whether I had ever felt uncomfortable around Mr. Conrad Mayer. The phrasing of the questions appeared to be leading and carried a negative connotation regarding Mr. Mayer.
20 seconds.
When Ms. Jackson noticed that I was reading the questions, she quickly took the paper back and informed me that I was not supposed to read them. I then asked if my parents had been notified about me being questioned during the investigation, and she said they had not. I told her I was not comfortable answering any questions without my parents' consent or knowledge. Following that, she allowed me to leave.
I have to cut you off, Ms. Aguilar.
I will say here for all of you to hear, not once in my years of knowing Conrad have I felt unsafe or uncomfortable in any interaction I have had with him. Mr. Mayer is a mentor that I needed, and so many other students needed.
We have to cut you off.
It was heartbreaking.
Cannot yield time. Thank you, Ms. Aguilar, please. Thank you. Folks, please be aware that I have actually graciously extended the time to 90 minutes, but I do have to adhere to the 2-minute time limit. If we cannot, then we could just close it out and head into closed session for deliberation. I would love to hear from each and every one of you. That's why the time was extended. Mr. Mayor, you are up, followed by Garrett Gatewood.
Mr. President, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Are we not granting the extra minute to students?
Yes, we are. That's why we went a little longer for her.
So,
But it was 3 minutes. Let's do this. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
so I'm not going to speak. I would like to ask, though, since it's been a student accusal of me, you had students that were on campus, that are on campus, that were willing to speak, and you denied them that. Just like there was a denying of their witnesses' statements at the time of their questioning at school. You received none of their witness statements, none. And they're here to speak now, and you gave them 2 minutes. So.
Thank you. Mr. Gatewood.
All right. My name is Garrett, Vice Mayor of Rancho Cordova. I'm here to speak for someone that stood up for our community for decades, Mr. Conrad Mayer. And tonight, I just want to say that the community is thinking what the district is doing to him is unfair. Not just unfair and shameful, but it feels like a public lynching of a Black leader of our community. And yes, I use that word intentionally, African American, because when a Black man who has dedicated his entire adult life to uplifting students, especially Black and brown youth, is suddenly targeted, isolated, and pushed out for the lies and a fake process, and your judge got rid of the case, just so you guys know, before he was pushed into making that decision. Who else do our kids have? Who else walks the halls of Cordova for the history? Whose heart, whose hands, who else do we trust to support our kids? But I see them here, to hear them, to guide them. I only trust Conrad Mayer with our Black and brown kids of Folsom Cordova Unified, because he gets there, he protects them, and because he actually is one of them. You talk about equity, inclusion, safe schools, but when a man who spent his life fighting for those real values, you silence him, and you silence a child. That's shameful. You erase him. You treat him like trash. This isn't equity. This is not justice. This is a warning shot to any Black colored leaders that lead the truth. This man spent decades uplifting this garbage, this Cordova High, coaching, mentoring, organizing, fundraising, advocating, and helping the gap. But you can trace every good thing in Rancho Cordova from 6 steps from Conrad Mayer. He's not just a man of many hats with deep roots. He's a champion of our schools and the kind of leader that you should be begging to leave on our campus. So I have to say tonight, stop now. Do not allow the district to become a place where Black excellence is punished. Reinstate Conrad Mayer, restore his dignity. YK, do what's right.
Thank you, Mr. Gatewood. Melody Mayer, followed by Coach Max Miller.
I am here tonight to express serious concern regarding the mishandling of the administrative investigation carried out under your authority. From the beginning, district staff disregarded key provisions of Ed Code 87623, which clearly outlines the right of an employee placed on administrative leave to be notified within 5 days of the general nature of allegations. Conrad was put on leave December 13th. He wasn't advised of the charges until January 4th, more than 3 weeks after he was put on leave. That timeline exists for a reason. Basically, the unlawful delay denied Conrad the ability to respond meaningfully and fairly and reflects a troubling disregard for employee rights and a dangerous culture of administrative outreach. Conrad was also systematically denied fair access to critical information throughout the investigation. Multiple discovery requests were denied up front or just ignored. The staff at Cordova High and possibly even your staff at the district intentionally withheld details of numerous interviews with students and staff that failed to support the allegations of sexual harassment. None of that was included in the record. This isn't just not negligence, it's an intentional effort to skew the outcome of the investigation. Adding to the misconduct, on April of 2024, Don Ogden contacted a Rancho Cordova police officer at a Cal Pal leadership conference that Conrad and I were both asked to chaperone, and he advised the officer that Conrad was not allowed to be around students and had taken students out of school without parental permission. These were blatant lies, and I can only imagine were an effort to impede his credibility. When district officials mislead law enforcement, they don't just cross ethical lines, they risk legal consequences. Conrad sought due process to the AJL hearing. That also was a farce. When the board cannot continue to tolerate the culture in which due process is treated as optional and transparency is inconvenient and where employee rights are trampled on. I'm demanding that you vote not to terminate Conrad and that you initiate an independent review of the investigation of those responsible for its failures. If the board refuses to act, I can assure you this matter will not end here.
Thank you, Ms. Mayer. Coach Max Miller. And it's followed by Perry Musich.
I'm sorry?
It's followed by Perry Musich. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach.
Okay. One of my concerns is, the value of a man like Conrad to be on campus is not just for the students, but it's for the faculty and the coaches also. And I can tell you that when I first met Conrad, I can't tell you how many times he would come up and say, Coach, so-and-so doesn't have money for lunch. So-and-so lives with his grandparents. So-and-so lives in a garage by himself. So-and-so doesn't have a computer. So-and-so doesn't have gas to get here. He walks 2.5 miles. I can go on, but when you take away the value of this man to be on campus, it's really a crime. I think it would be important for all of you to go, and I could ask you to raise your hand. How many of you have ever been on Cordova High School's campus? Have you been there? No, nobody. Well, here's the thing. The thing that's not your job too, and I understand that. That once a Lancer means a lot. Once a Lancer means a lot. It's not like all schools. There's a tremendous amount of pride in being a Lancer. This guy here, Conrad's part of that. And the value that he has, and you guys all had teachers. You had good teachers. You had bad teachers. The value he has is for students and to communicate that students value the faculty members. And like I said, not all the Lancers have computers. A lot of our faculty members open their office at 7:30, 7 o'clock in the morning so they get those kids a chance to do a paper on a computer. The reason is because Conrad got that information to those faculty members. Now, I was a football coach there for over 30 years and an athletic director for 10. And I can tell you, the value of this man being on that campus is it's just unbelievable. And to take it away from him, I mean, it's obvious with a crowd like this, and support of what he does is tremendous. And I want to congratulate you, Conroy, because you do have it coming to you. But I don't think anybody should ever have to go through something like that, because this guy.
Thank you, Coach.
He loves
And I know
it.
you got to finish.
I know you do. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you get a chance to visit the best high school in Sacramento.
Perry, followed by Laurie Stewart Deal.
Thank you. As I come to this, a play was written some time ago about children who fabricated stories, and adults, because of their lies, hurt other adults. That play was entitled The Crucible, otherwise known as A Witch Hunt, and I have explicated to students many times. I've been an English teacher, mock trial coach, a varsity football, baseball assistant, head coach, a reading specialist, the list goes on. Over 30 years, and 19 of which have been here at Cordova High School. And countless young people, children, I know, have fabricated stories. I've been side by side with Conrad Mayer for over 25 years, and he has stood in the gap, dedicated his life to serving students, particularly at-risk students in Ranch Cordova, a tenure longer than mine. And in all that time, working with helping, coaching, prodding, encouraging, supporting, housing at the district's request, there was not one hint of impropriety in that time. He has been above reproach, and chose him the best man at my wedding because because of his honor and someone who didn't want to be without. And likewise, the literally thousands, and I do mean thousands of kids who have been directly, positively, and forever affected by Conrad Mayer never want to be without him either. Students have come to me countless times and exclaimed that they were glad they had listened to him, and and the ones who didn't wish they had. Students will answer the call, like you see right here, serve as adults because of his guidance. And now this, a crucible moment. Believe two or thousands. You have heard and will hear Conrad giving funds, gift cards, tickets, Kings games, countless hours helping kids and their parents while the rest of us were safe in our homes. I know because he brought me along with him, and I am one of those research employees. Conrad's committed to contributions community. I'll skip ahead. If you're educated field, you know anything about kids, you know about youth as much as they want to be and act like adults and not lie, they do. They lie a lot. And they don't want to admit to you a lie, and that's why we exist, adults. I'm asking you to be adults. I'm asking you to guide students and recognize that kids do lie. And by the way, I'm the one that gave the $500.
Thank you. Laurie Stewart, followed by Jared Hayden.
Hello, I'm Lori Tice. I've taught at Folsom High for 34 years, just recently retired. I'm very familiar with teenagers. I love them, but sometimes they get on a bandwagon and start saying things because of what they've heard. I've known Conrad since 7th grade. We were roommates for a period of time in my 20s. He was part of my wedding as well, and I was part of his. I'm here today because of someone accusing Conrad of something. As I've stated, I've known Conrad for over 50 years. As a middle and high schooler, I never saw him act inappropriately toward girls or speak inappropriately to or about girls. As a 20-something, going to clubs with him, hanging out in groups with him, I never saw him act inappropriately toward women or speak inappropriately about women. Those are prime ages where immaturity and misogyny sometimes rear their ugly heads. But Conrad has never been like that, ever, ever. It is not part of his DNA. If you don't know Conrad and have heard some of the things that he's done for others, you may be thinking, this guy can't be real. What's his end game? It's hard to believe that someone could be so caring and generous without a motive. But I assure you, he has no ulterior motives. He shows up for others in every way. He helps people emotionally, practically, and financially without any desire for payback. He has been like this in his entire life. As he stated earlier, in ninth grade, he won a citizenship award at Mills. I don't know what he did to earn this, but it was a foreshadowing of the kind of man he would become. He is an anomaly. I have never met anyone like him. He is easily the most generous, giving, loving person I've ever met. If he sees a need, he's there. If you reach out to him, he's there. If you don't reach out to him, he hears you are, that you need him, he's there. If he hears you have a friend in need, he's there. If you have a family member in need, he's there. He and Melody have helped people. I remember one Christmas where they adopted a family where you bring gifts to people in need. They went to the house, gave the gifts, realized that these people had dealing with poverty and other needs. Next thing you know, they're on the phone with their friends to donate men, women, and children's clothing, jackets, blankets, practical household items, toys. Heck, I even remember them asking for rugs and a carpet since the floor was bare and cold. They gathered so much stuff, they were able to help several families in the neighborhood. It is heartbreaking, I'm almost done. It's heartbreaking to believe that someone whose heart is so pure and has given so much to others could lose his career, all because his generosity, friendliness, and kindness has been misconstrued as something other than genuine love and care. Please do the right thing tonight.
Thank you. Jared Hayden, followed by Julie Belka.
Good evening, Board President Clark, board members, Superintendent Swanson. My name is Dr. Jared Hayden, and I had the privilege of serving as the former principal of Cordova High School, where I had the honor of working closely with Conrad Mayer. I'm here tonight to speak with urgency, conviction, and deep respect to strongly advocate that you dismiss the proposed disciplinary action and termination of Mr. Mayer. Conrad is not just a staff member. He's the heart of the Rancho Cordova community. An alumnus of Cordova High, a neighbor, a mentor, a tireless advocate, Conrad has done more for this city and our youth than any person I've ever worked alongside. During my tenure as principal, I witnessed Conrad's unwavering commitment time and time again. He showed up for our students in ways that transcended any job description. I will never forget the day we lost a graduate to violence. Amid chaos and heartbreak, Conrad stood shoulder to shoulder with a family, grieving with them, supporting them, and ensuring our school wrapped around them with the care. That wasn't an assignment, that's who he is. He has brought a vision of equity into every space he has been a part of, most profoundly through MOCK, a program designed for students who are often overlooked or written off. He lifts up those who feel invisible, he fights for those whose stories go unheard, and he does it with compassion, humility, and integrity. To consider removing Conrad from our schools, to take him away from the very students who need him most, would not only be a profound disservice to him, but a dangerous step backward for the district's equity efforts. The programs that have been transformed because of his leadership will suffer, and so will the young lives he has tirelessly worked to uplift. We cannot afford to lose educators like Conrad Mayer. We cannot afford to silence a voice rooted in lived experience, in justice, and in love for this community. Honor his service, recognize his impact, and dismiss this proposed termination with the respect that his legacy and our students deserve. Thank you.
All right, Julie, followed by Diane Rogers.
Hello, my name is Julie Hagen-Belka, and it is beyond comprehension that I need to stand here before you for the reason that I am. To provide my unwavering support for Conrad Mayer, who has dedicated his life to serving this community. Conrad has been the due north for at-risk kids, and I was an at-risk kid in our community long before he developed MOCK and was involved in Rotary's Interact program. It is his life's purpose to be the steadfast example and support for our youth. I should know I've known him since I was 11 years old, and as an adult, it was he who gave me the nudge to get more involved in community service. Clearly, this district also agrees that he is an exemplary and trustworthy leader of our youth, because not once, not twice, but 6 separate occasions, this very district asked Conrad and his wife to house at-risk kids, and 2 of them were female. It's beyond thoughts, really. And of course they did it. No whisper. Over all of this time, Conrad has been a part of this community. Never a whisper of anything wrong. Additionally, since somehow we have made giving gift cards to students some kind of questionable action of full of ill intent, would it not also be true that this district's PBIS program that gives out gift cards to students is also suspect? If not, we can certainly add hypocrisy to the list of terrible treatment during this process. Terrible. I've been contacted by Conrad on numerous occasions asking to help fund various emergency situations for students, male, female, offering gift cards, buying groceries, clothing, helping with car repairs, helping identify job opportunities, you name it. One such call was to my husband asking if he could help chaperone children, kids, to the Kings game. And my husband gets there, meets at the spot, and of course, the 4 girls who were set to go with my husband, they said, you know what, we're so sorry, Mr. Belka, but we'd feel much better if we could go with Mr. Mayor. Why? Because they felt comfortable, they felt safe. And he, of course, yielded to that and said, no problem, of course. I implore you tonight to do the right thing, to make the right call. Clearly, this community needs Conrad. More children, more at-risk youth need to be like me and be successful in their life because someone leads the way. Don't let that light go out in our community. Don't do it.
Diane Rogers, followed by Shelley Blanchard.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Diane Rogers and have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO of the Rancho Cordova Area Chamber of Commerce. Often it can be a challenge to discern what is right from wrong. That is not the case today. The truth is simply the truth today. Conrad Mayer is a good man. He has a heart for the underserved, the underprivileged, the under-mentored, those we often dismiss to our own shame. Conrad makes sure these young people are seen, heard, and respected. In fact, he demands that they are respected. I urge you not to buy into this witch hunt, but demonstrate courage and do the right thing. Doing the right thing can often be difficult, and this is a difficult time. Demonstrate to the students, the parents, the teachers, and this community that you have the courage to do the right thing under challenging circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Blanchard, followed by Jordan Kiatapu.
I'm not going to spend my time today reciting the long list of Conrad Mayer's contributions to our community, because everybody else is going to take care of that for me. You've heard all about Conrad. He's not just respected in our city, in our community, he is revered. And he's been a whistleblower, which sometimes makes him inconvenient. But it is precisely his courage to speak up, to challenge dysfunction that has made things better time and time again. You've also heard troubling reports, a toxic culture at Cordova High School where challenging the status quo leads to being sidelined or worse, where power has been misused, where investigative protocols were violated, students' words weaponized, and vital voices silenced. I have experienced this myself along with Dr. David Sander. We were judged as non-credible witnesses because we failed to tell the judge what he wanted to hear. We spoke the truth. Let's call this what it is, a failure. It's a disservice to the people you are supposed to protect, our students, our teachers, our community. But here's the good news. Thank God, some good news. You have the power to make it right. Right here and right now. This is not complicated. It is a choice, as my friend Diane Rogers just said, it is a choice between right and wrong. And when your time as trustees or educators or community people, when your time comes to an end, only 2 things are gonna matter. What values did you stand for and who did you help? That's it. You already know how Conrad Mayer will be remembered, but what about you? What is your legacy gonna be? Will you stand for justice and truth even when it's hard? Will you have the courage to reject the easy path to just rubber stamp a flawed investigation and quietly move on? Because this isn't just about Conrad. It's about the students and families that haven't walked through the doors at Cordova yet, but they will. They'll need someone who will fight for them, someone like Conrad Mayer. And right now, they need to see that those in power, you, are worthy of their trust. Reject the flawed findings, and let's get back to what truly matters, loving and educating our kids with integrity that they deserve. Folsom Cordova, we must do better, and this is where it starts.
Thank you. Jordan Kiatapu, followed by Cheryl Gleason.
So I'm Jordan Kaitapu, educator and advocate. I'm sure some of you remember me from a few years back showing up to every board meeting to advocate for the youth. I was a COVID graduate, class of 2020. I was a student at Cordova and had very few interactions with Conrad Mayer. That was mainly due to his invasive, hostile, and retaliatory nature, with one instance being towards one of my friends and advocating for the prioritization of underserved youth getting opportunities his program offered. But after reading through the same documents you all have in front of you and hearing comments made about his demeanor and provoked from the youth that I mentor at Cordova, it has been made more than clear that this is deeper than an isolated incident. I am in a pretty unique position as someone who works with upper grades and is pretty close to their age. While it's unintentional, I have the ability to blend in with students that grants me a perspective that not many staff have. I get to see how staff behave when they don't think another adult is in the room, when they don't think there's anyone capable of holding them accountable. I say all this to say, as strongly as some of Conrad's co-workers and associates may feel, they don't truly know his character when he's unsupervised with the children he has been documented causing harm to. It is not impossible that he did what was detailed in those documents. It's said that FCSD staff are expected to inspire excellence in all students by supporting their social, emotional wellness, and academic growth. We work as a team to create welcoming and inclusive environments at our school sites. How are you to expect excellence in students, support their social, emotional wellness, and academics when the staff you have retained have caused this great amount of harm to them? The findings show the accusations are credible. The witnesses are credible. Conrad's testimony was inconsistent. In this room full of denial, I extend my deepest sympathy to the youth who have been negatively impacted by Conrad's actions. Both those who have spoken up and those who have been forced into silence. This is about protecting the kids. We can't go back in the past, but you can prevent more harm in the future by voting to terminate Conrad Mayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Gleason, followed by Khalid Tate.
Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Swanson. My name is Cheryl Gleason. I'm the art director at the MAC in Rancho Cordova, and I'm an employee of Cordova Community Council. I've only known Conrad for 7.5 years since I started working at Cordova Community Council. We were not friends, we were not colleagues. He was a mentor for students, mentoring an organization called MOC. I watched and listened to this man who gave so much of his personal time, his passion, and himself to these kids in Rancho Cordova that have gotten off track in school. And I was amazed as an outsider. As each of our community events, Cordova Community Council relies on MOC to come in and help with volunteerism. I watch Conrad coach these kids, inform them of the reasons of why they're doing things a certain way, celebrate publicly when they've done a good job, and always be there to listen to them when they needed to talk. As a director of training in a previous role and a master's in education that I hold, I can tell you that a successful training in any situation is to teach the whys. And that's what Conrad does. He teaches kids the why something needs to be done the way it does. You do that so that you can inform future decision makings and cognitive skill making when learning. And this is incredibly important for the kids that he mentors. Conrad Mayer emphasizes that we're doing and helping organizations. He's never said an appropriate thing that I've heard. And I strongly urge you to do the right thing and restore Conrad Mayer to his job, because Cordova High needs this program, and they need Conrad Mayer leading this program if you want kids to have the kind of future that some of the kids have that he has helped. Thank you.
Thank you. Khalid Tate, followed by, it's like Jay Rainey.
It's Caleb Tate, but I met Conrad in 2005. I was a senior at Cordova High School running track and field, and literally, I didn't know Conrad was from Adam and Eve, but I knew that he cared about the kids, and he helped me at that time get a job to buy my suit for senior ball. He helped me get my first car. He did all these things, and one thing I realized was that Conrad loved Rancho Cordova. He still does. Like, without Rancho Cordova, I don't know where Conrad would be. And so when they told me that this was happening, I was like, there's no way in the world that we can let this go down, not because of any legal stuff, because we've heard that, and that's going to take his own path, but Conrad is a man who stands on morals. You can tell that by him turning down money. Like, it's not something that everybody would do. I wouldn't do that. But Conrad turned it down, you know what I mean? And so I know that Conrad, without being able to be at Cordova, without being in Rancho, that would just take a part of him. He's been around for longer than I've been alive. And if you would have asked for a character reference, there'd be thousands of kids in here because he's helped people, because if you guys haven't noticed, no one's lining up to run into Cordova to help. He's there on his own free time. He was doing it when I was in high school without any type of job. He was just an assistant coach on the track and field. And that helped me get a lifelong relationship with him to where I give back now. I work out with teenagers, and I know that when you question a teenager, you can get them to answer the way you want to. You can get them to say what you want them to say by asking a question a certain way, because we know their brains aren't developed all the way. So when you ask these things and you guys present this kind of case, it's hard because you're putting somebody's name on the line. It's not about a job per se or just money. It's about somebody's reputation who's given nothing but his entire life, everything in his life, his house, his cars, to helping people out. And he's fed people. Like I said, no one's lining up. If you remove him from his spot, you haven't seen no one else pick up the mock program. No one's running to Cordova. We're considered second class compared to Folsom and stuff like that, but people who are a part of it, who are homegrown, want to take care of their own, and so that's why we're here for Conrad. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jay Rainey, followed by Mike Morando.
Good afternoon. By way of introduction, my name is Jay Ramey, and I'm the past coach of the CHS girls soccer program. I ended my tenure 2 seasons ago. We had COVID graduations, starting with just one soccer ball, literally. No money and support, and great support of the boys' coach. We developed a study hall that had very little support from management at the time, thus making me take off work to run. Conrad would regularly poke his head in. Students always would look at him and smile. It seems in the time I was at CHS, management did everything they could via their hiring to keep CHS at a subpar school. Test results, I believe, show that. I know you did not mean to, but the effects were there. Leadership turnover was, and from what I hear, still high. Conrad always had a calming factor to many. One would either love him or hate him, but I, for one, respect him. It was clear Conrad's role as a mentor helped every student that was in this program that played for the team. He also was one of the few that showed up to many of our games over the years. It may surprise you, but girls soccer is not the most popular at Cordova. So why are we here? Is it because your hiring practices and support issues drove a noted soccer coach away and the boys coach? Yeah. Let's be clear. Someone who cares about CHS like Conrad, about the city of Rancho, is an important person to have there. This board over the years has failed Cordova in their educational system, has failed Cordova in their hiring practices, one pretty notable one just recently, and has failed Cordova in so many other aspects that my 6 years there, I was dumbfounded at how a board would allow those things to happen. There is no shame in this world anymore, but I will tell you this, fix it or shame on you.
Thank you. Mike Mirando, followed by Regina Ricard.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Mike Mirando. I am the president of the Rancho Cordova Sports Hall of Fame. I'm a 1973 Cordova High School graduate. I've been in this community for 62 years. I've known this man over here for 45 of those 62 years. 10 years ago, he founded the Rancho Cordova Sports Hall of Fame. He's also the founder of the Cordova Lancers, Leaders and Legends, CL3, and the mentors at Cordova High School, the mock programs that you have all heard about already this afternoon. His work there is well documented and will continue to be so. In fact, Conrad has founded several other mentoring programs within the community. Simply, this man leads by example. I think we can all agree on that. He's also mentored hundreds of other young people into positive role models, some of whom you've already seen tonight. He genuinely loves people, from what I've seen in those 45 years, and he's molding the youth into the leaders of tomorrow. This man has a record spanning more than 4 decades of putting others above self. He helped organize the first ever Relay for Life in Rancho Cordova, benefiting the American Cancer Society and bringing awareness about cancer prevention into our community. Who does this kind of stuff? Conrad Mayer, that's who. If somebody needed help on a Saturday morning at 5 a.m., guess who they call? And guess who shows up? If a student needs help either on or off campus at 5 o'clock in the morning, Conrad shows up. As you consider his fate tonight, I would pose these questions to you, respected members of the board. Are the allegations against Conrad supported by any evidence other than a few Facebook posts? Were there any text messages between Conrad and his accusers? Any video? Any findings of any substance that would be consistent with the allegations? Or is this simply she said, he said? I urge the school board tonight to reject the ALJ's recommendations and restore this man's job, but more importantly, to restore his name and reputation. A reputation, I might add, that he has earned for over 4 decades of service to my community, Rancho Cordova. Rancho Cordova is dang lucky to have him, and I wish I had a mentor like him when I was in high school.
Thank you,
I'm
Mike.
blessed to have known him. Thank you kindly.
Regina Ricard, followed by James Watcher.
Good evening. My name is Regina Ricard. I am a retired peace officer. I worked at the Sacramento County Probation Department as a probation officer, working with juvenile delinquents, mastered of manipulation, and after 10 years, transferred to the state of California, where I spent the remainder 17 years of my career as an investigator and peace officer with the Department of Insurance, investigating alleged violations of insurance agents and brokers for insurance laws, with Department of Corporations, investigating alleged violations of securities fraud and laws, and the Department of Health Services, investigating alleged violations of abuse, neglect, and theft by certified nursing assistants. In the last 9 years of my career with the Department of Consumer Affairs Division of Investigation, investigating referred complaints by multiple state boards and bureaus of alleged criminal activity and administrative violations. Throughout my career, I have testified under oath in multiple criminal court hearings and presented evidence in multiple administrative hearings, providing recommendations to the courts. Today, I cannot speak to the allegations made against Conrad Mayer, but I attest that I have known Conrad for approximately 48 years, back to our high school days at Cordova High School, beginning in 1977. I would not be here today to support Conrad and make these statements on his behalf if I had not had such a strong belief in my knowledge of his history of complete integrity and compassion, and he has shown to so many throughout the years. During my lifetime experiences with Conrad, I have never, ever heard him make an insensitive or sexually inappropriate comment or gesture toward any person. So these allegations are sincerely shocking and, quite frankly, unbelievable to me. In fact, I know of no one who has ever stated anything negative, but but only very positive and wonderful things about Conrad. To my knowledge, during the majority of his adult life, Conrad has put his heart and soul and genuine passion into serving the community, performing many years of community service and helping with youth. I have always known Conrad to be a completely moral, ethical, credible, exemplary gentleman with a huge heart and compassion for helping anyone who asks. It breaks my heart to hear of these allegations that I believe are completely out of character of a man I know and I believe so many others know him to be. I pray that there are not maligned or ill-willed motives behind these allegations that could potentially harm Conrad's lifetime reputation as a great man who has done so much good for so many. I also pray that unless there is clear and convincing evidence or even a preponderance of provable, recorded, and documented evidence to fully substantiate the allegations and not based on he said, she said statements, that these allegations and this matter brings no harm to Conrad's great name and fully earned decades-long reputation to his community, which would be in my heart a true travesty. Thank you for your time and hearing my sincere, heartfelt story.
Thank you. James Watcher, and followed by Joey Ortiz.
I didn't clearly understand Conrad when he came up here. I don't know if you are allowed to have one of these or you did get one, but you can have mine because I know him. This is his story. My name is James Walker, and thanks for the invite. In '98, I was hired as a track and cross-country coach at Cordova High and have known Conrad for over 25 years. Conrad was a presence on the track many, many days during practice and at track meets. All the kids enjoyed him being out there and would always interact and engage with him. In all those years in practices and meets, I have never seen any inappropriate actions or heard any inappropriate comments from Conrad. He is always respectful and courteous to any and all the people that I have ever seen him talk and interact with. There's very likely not another single person in this city or at Cordova High who is more involved or does more for the people of the city or the Cordova High. Most of all, the youth. From mentoring the youth at the high school to volunteer at the Jingle Bell Run in December, he's at the summer concert helping who needs help. He's been at the Christmas tree lighting for many years. He's been an integral part of the 4th of July celebration at Hagan Park. On and on and on it goes. If there's an event going on in the city, not only does Conrad know about it and likely involved in some way, he is very often helping out in some form or fashion. I point these out only because it tells the story that Conrad is involved and engaging with many people throughout the year and throughout many years at these various events, and in particular, the youth of our city and our schools. I've raised 4 kids in this city. They all graduated Cordova High. When I walked up tonight, Conrad gave me three of the 4 of my kids' names. He's a 100% stand-up guy. I spent 30 years in law enforcement. I know when I see deception, when I don't. I urge you to do the right thing, okay? Because you got the wrong guy. And I challenge you to replace him, but you won't meet that challenge because this guy is an asset to this city above and beyond anyone that I know in this city or at the school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Joey Ortiz, followed by Sean Tari. Hopefully I got that right.
My name is Joey Ortiz, class of '89, Cordova Lancer. It's emotional for me. I was that teenager that needed someone like Conrad that barely graduated from Cordova. I'm an ex-genius juvenile delinquent that grew up in Rancho Cordova that started drinking at a very young age and took every wrong turn I could possibly find. I needed someone like Conrad back then. I was fortunate enough to meet Conrad in 1984 when I was 14 years old, well on the way to the wrong path in life. He don't know this, I've never told him, but he took me under his wing when I was 38 years old, when I finally grew up, was able to turn my life around. It took me a long time. But I'm here to say this, I've been around Conrad Mayer, multiple football games, around young women. I've never heard him say one thing inappropriate. I've never seen him glare, gaze, no locker room talk, as our president puts it. I've never heard him say anything inappropriate. I've heard others, but I've watched him quickly silence them So I'm here to say this, make the right move. You got a chance to do the right thing tonight. I've seen Conrad do the right thing over and over and over and over again. This is a little emotional for me as I gather myself and my thoughts. But I'll say this about Conrad. He's been around my wife, my first wife. He's been around my second wife. He's been around both my daughters, who all are beautiful, intelligent, and positive individuals themselves. And I've never heard him say one thing inappropriate. Never. That's all I got.
I may have butchered this. Sean Tari?
Yes.
All right, got it. Followed by Jane Lee.
Hey, rather than focusing on what I or anyone else believes or thinks is right or wrong, I'm going to focus on what I know to be true and have personally witnessed on numerous occasions. And that's the character and dignity of Conrad Mayer, a man that I consider to be both a friend and a brother. This is a man who has selflessly given his time, blood, sweat, and tears to the youth of the community that he's always proudly called home, paying it forward by giving the Rancho Cordova youth hope, a reason to dream, the resources, and the encouragement to pursue opportunities to be the best versions of themselves. And most of all, showing them that they matter is a passion of the heart for this man. This man never signed up for this, for monetary gain, accolades, or recognition. The desire to give back has always been fueled only by the love for his community. And rather than simply sitting on the sidelines hoping the youth of his community would be contributing members of society, he actively became involved with the servant's heart to ensure that the youth of Rancho Cordova would have an organization that believed in them and their dreams. And now the community that Conrad has served for decades without fail is trying to take the two things you can't put a price on, and that's the two things I'm certain everyone in this room would fight for, and that's character and dignity, the two things that can't be bought but are earned over a lifetime of doing the right thing day in and day out. Whenever I'm in Conrad's presence, I know that our time together is going to be one that isn't transparent, authentic, genuine, intentional, and filled with love. In closing, again, I'm only going to speak of what I know to be true, and that is Conrad Mayer is the epitome of character, integrity, and class, and you need look no further than the selfless body of work that he has given both to the youth of Cordova and the ones that consider it an honor and privilege to call him a friend and a brother.
Thank you. Jane Lee, followed by Dave Franziola.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jane Lee, and I'm here to speak on the decision you face concerning Conrad Mayer. I have known Conrad for about 6 years as a math tutor for his students in the mock program. I'm a mother of two, an aerospace engineer, and a full-time math teacher. First, it's important to acknowledge the historically difficult position each of you is in. While you strive to do the right thing, you are wedged between giving due process to allegations and possibly persecuting an honest man. I have and will continue to pray to our Lord Jesus Christ for your perseverance, courage, and discernment. Second, as a college student and later in the engineering environment, I personally have experienced sexual harassment, innuendo, and intimidation. One learns the micro expressions and micro actions of a man crossing personal boundaries. The prolonged glance, standing too close, over-complimenting, over-acknowledging, over-engaging. I've been in the classroom with Conrad at mock meetings, pizza parties, and community volunteer events, and he has never exhibited any of these behaviors. He has always been professional and respectful in attitude, manners, and respect. Lastly, as you search for the truth, please bear in mind that it's worth the arduous journey you face, as we as a community will be all the stronger for your efforts. And may I offer that possibly through a turn of events, one of you may be in his position someday, and you will wish someone stood up and fought for you. And possibly this is a catalyst for this community to put something in place. These misunderstandings happen. find a way to mitigate this, for students to have a voice at school, and for teachers to have one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Franziola, followed by Otis Griffin.
Good evening, I'm Dave Franzoya. I'm a former teacher in this district for many years. Many of my younger students are back behind me now. Yeah. So I'm here today with many of you to support Conrad Mayer. We can all say with great respect, he's our friend. Conrad is a doer. The work ethic and sense of community and drive was instilled in him by his parents, his teachers, and coaches, and helping classmates in auto shop, athletes, neighbors, friends, community members. He was the magnet that brought people together. At Suburban Ford, he tutored mechanics. A great talent with auto mechanics inspired many of these young men to continue that as their life work. In the early days of Rancho Cordova, Julie's grandparents, Paul and Dale Hagen, were the doers. Now, this team of Conrad and Melody are the doers of today. Whether it involved raising money for cancer research, PTAs, 4th of July parades, Melody helped formulate and execute the plans of Conrad. The mission and drive of this dynamic couple has always been about giving back to the community and the students of Rancho Cordova. And as part of his involvement with his class of 1979, they help organize fundraisers, again, for the benefit of needy families and students in the community. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Otis Griffin, followed by Scott Cypress.
Good day, Board of Education, community. Otis Griffin, class of 1995, retired peace officer, retired light heavyweight champion of the world. I don't want to talk about who I am or who I will be. I want to talk about the kid that I used to be. I was 15 years old when I met that man. I remember he came to talk to us. Coach Miller had him come to talk to us. And just as a pep talk, I think we were playing Christian Brothers or something like that. And I looked at him and I said, this guy's sharp, he's bold, he's well-spoken. And I said, I want to be like that. Later on, he became a mentor with the OK program, the Our Kids program by Deborah Norcross. And from there, between Oakland and Sacramento, he had influenced over 4,000 young Black men's lives. There's many times that we were using profanity, catcalling the women, and like a ghost, grab the back of your neck. You don't talk like that. What's wrong with you? So now I go on to say that I become a father. When I became a father, my kids came through Cordova, my nieces, nephews, 3 daughters. When nobody's out there to catch a bus with them, this guy would sit with them until my wife got there. I've been all over the world with fighting and everything. Who do I get a call from? Hey, they're home. This guy. I entrusted him with my own children. I don't know what's going on. It seems like this is a lot of confusion and collusion. You guys have an important job to do. Not only can we not let this man go out and have a smudge on his name like this, but we need him to mentor more people, more teachers, more educators, more people in the community like myself. Don't do this. It's up to you guys.
All right, Scott Cypress, followed by Jerry Lacey.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Cypress, a proud graduate of Cordova High School class of 1981. Where I was actively involved in athletics, I'm writing to offer my personal testimony and unwavering support for Conrad Mayer, who I've known for over 47 years. I first met Conrad when I was 15 years old during football camp in the summer of 1978, just before my sophomore year in high school. At that time, he was a respected leader of the varsity football team, someone we all looked up to. Even then, he led by example, and that leadership has remained consistent throughout the decades. Over the years, Conrad and I have shared countless life experiences along with a group of 10 to 12 fellow alumni, affectionately known as Lancers. We built a strong, enduring bond. Together, we've taken group vacations to Mexico and Maui, held regular game nights, movie nights, pizza nights, attended hundreds of dinners and social gatherings, celebrated annual Christmas parties, hosted by fellow alumnus for over 20 years, volunteered to provide security at each other's class reunions. As you can see, I've spent a significant amount of time with Conrad in a wide variety of settings. And in all those years and interactions, I have never once witnessed him act in a manner that was disrespectful, inappropriate, unkind. He has always been a positive, respectful, and uplifting presence. I have never heard him speak disparagingly about anyone, especially not about today's youth. On the contrary, he has consistently demonstrated encouragement, empathy, and integrity. In cases like this, where serious allegations are made, patterns typically emerge, multiple victims, a history of misconduct, or other corroborating evidence, and of course, a full, impartial investigation is essential. If the board is truly seeking the truth, I urge you to consider the voices of those who have known Conrad closely and consistently over the years, those of us who trust him without hesitation. In my humble opinion, if this board chooses to proceed without clear and compelling evidence, it raises concerns about potential ulterior motives. As a governing body entrusted with the education and well-being of our community, your commitment must be to fairness, due process, and above all, the truth, not to the destruction of a man's reputation without just cause. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Gary Lacy, followed by Linda Condon, and I don't think she's actually here. She said that she was leaving at 5 o'clock, so I'm not sure if Linda's here, but if she is up next.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Lacy, and I stand in support of Conrad Mayer. I'm not here to speak about the kind of person Conrad is. You have many others in this room who will do that. Instead, I ask you to simply look at Conrad's accomplishments in this community over the past 56 years and ask yourselves, what would make you think that someone with this record would risk everything he's built on such serious allegations? Conrad has been part of Rancho Cordova since he was 6 years old. He has spent his entire life giving back to this community and helping people of all ages. From his early days as a recognized classroom leader in 2nd grade to organizing community service projects in the 3rd grade alongside of his father, Conrad learned early that service matters. Look at his track record with our youth. At Cordova High School alone, over the past 12 years, he has devoted countless hours, even outside the classroom, to ensure no child is left behind or in need. As the in-house suspension supervisor, he doesn't manage discipline, he mentors students back to the right path. I have personally witnessed how students respect his opinion, honesty, reliability. He makes them feel seen and heard when no one else will. Conrad is an organizational leader. Conrad has been instrumental in PTSA at Mills Middle School, served on multiple school bond oversight committees, and successful co-chair of a $200 million bond campaign. He's been involved in Folsom Cordova Unified School District, Cordova Neighborhood Church, Cordova Community Council, Rotary of Rancho Cordova, Rancho Cordova Chamber of Commerce, and was founding board member of the Rancho Cordova Police Communities League. His recognition speaks volumes in Rancho Cordova. Rancho Cordovian of the year 2012, Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year in 2007, and Paul Harris Award recipient in 2014. He organized class reunions over 30 years and inspired classmates to give by purchasing equipment and providing scholarships for the Cordova High School. But most importantly, look what he's accomplished with the young people through his Interact Club. He grew membership from less than a dozen to consistently over 50 students. He organized leadership summits, empowerment events for young women, and created programs that have
That's
been
it. Thank you, ma'am.
recognized.
Thank you.
I just want to say this is very damaging and can really harm things to come with young people in coming years.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Linda is here. She did make a note that she had to catch a flight at 5. Linda Condon? Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm class 2018 from Cordova High School, and I'm currently a Rotary Club member from Granite Bay. Sorry. So I never feel anything around Conrad. And the reason why I continue to serve my community in Granite Bay is because of him. He's the mentor to mankind. I came here 2015 by myself and grew up in Rancho. So this is my second home. If he's not the right man for Rancho Cordova, I wouldn't speak for him. Sexual harassment, that's ridiculous. He want to make sure all the kids are safe. And he want to make sure all kids are successful. I'm a female. And you're assaulting him for sexual harassment. That's not true. If I ever feel anything, the whole world will know. So make the right choice. You see all the people here and do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad McCowan, followed by Jack Davies. Mr. McCowan? Oh. Okay, Mr. Davies.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Davies. I am a retired architect and a certified mediator. I have a question for the board. What happens when mediation fails? Are you prepared to tie up the school district for years in court for wrongful termination? I was recently exonerated by a jury from criminal charges because of false allegations made by a school principal. I have great respect for teachers and administrators, but they are fallible human beings, just like the rest of us. I won't comment on the integrity of the adolescent students or their parents, who I do not know. I had a stepson who attended Cordova High School, and he once found himself in Conrad's detention class. He is now a deputy sheriff, thanks to Conrad's guidance. I was a professional mentor in the Saturday school at Cordova High School when Conrad was the detention hall supervisor. We both tried our best to help students and to encourage them to become more successful in school and in life. My wife has known Conrad for over 50 years, from elementary through high school. She would be here to attest to Conrad's long-term character as being open, honest, and available to anyone who needed help. Many of us have known Conrad for his involvement with the Cordova High School alumni group that supports many student activities. I request that the school board dismiss this case and/or continue mediation with the Sacramento Mediation Center to achieve a win-win solution instead of a bureaucratic mediation board that has failed to reach any settlement. It would be far more beneficial to obtain a settlement agreement between Conrad and the family of these students for their long-term benefit and to develop lessons learned for the future of Cordova High School. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Looks like JP speaking for Amy Wallace.
I was going to speak for my sister-in-law, who will get emotional. But instead of me, you have a Lancer one who's going to speak.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I also serve as my senior class president, so I feel like I also have a voice for the student body in Cordova, but I'll get straight to it. I am here to speak to the character of Mr. Conrad, so often called Condad. Conrad is a person who sees a need and puts his all into filling it. Conrad saw a need for the Rancho Cordova community to rebuild his village. Mock was born. Conrad saw a need for bigs, high schoolers, to build a community bridge with the littles, elementary schoolers, and improve literacy. The Big and Little Literacy Program was formed. Conrad saw a need to help grieving Lancer families heal from their loss of their sons. A memorial bench now sits in White Rock Park for Calvin and Tim. Conrad spoke like a grieving father at his service. Conrad saw a need for Cordova kids to see beyond. Born were field trips to Mount Shasta Caverns, Alcatraz, UC Santa Cruz, Apple Hill, Sonoma State, Charles Schutz Museum, Chabot Science Center, Stanford, baseball games, basketball games, Six Flags, and more. Last year, during a mock meeting, members were asked, do you want a fun field trip or visit college? All 30+ hands went up to visit college. Conrad saw a hungry child and fed them. Kids struggled with math, and Conrad provided a tutor. Conrad saw a need to help graduates of Cordova High School born were $9 $1,000 scholarships to help with post-school endeavors, whether it be college, trade school, military, or life. Conrad saw the need for young people to understand the value of giving back and community service. Born was a partnership with the Cordova Community Council to provide opportunities for young people to give back. Through their services and others, you could see the self-worth and self-esteem be built. Conrad is a problem solver, need filler, a good human, and most importantly, a mentor. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Veronica Lane, followed by Charles Ellington.
Good evening. On December 12, 2023, I received a text message from my daughter, Valeria Aguilar, expressing concern about something that had happened at school. During a final, she had been called into the assistant principal's office, where the assistant principal asked her to sign a document and attempt to ask her questions regarding Mr. Mayor. In a later conversation that day, Valeria told me that she had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. I proceeded to ask her open-ended questions about Mr. Mayor. As we finished up, I told her we would wait to hear from the school or law enforcement. Fast forward to June 10th, 2025, I have not heard from the school or law enforcement regarding my child's safety or well-being with regards to Mr. Mayor. I have worked with Mr. Mayor over the last decade and can say with certainty that I have never, ever seen him sexually harass anyone in my presence. Members of the board, anyone, including all of those present here today, can be accused of making inappropriate comments or sexually harassing Another, through a simple act of offering to give someone a ride, giving someone a hug, or looking at someone a certain way. How we determine the intent of an individual must be handled delicately, with the understanding of where, when, and how to interview minors without providing leading questions or placing them in intimidating situations, where the answers may be tainted by the environment and investigator. I think the questions you should be asking yourselves as a board are, how are these investigations handled? What training is provided to the staff handling these investigations? What questions are students asked and how are they interviewed? Are the investigators or staff overseeing the investigations free from bias? Are the investigations handled the same across the district for both men of color and white men? Are the resulting decisions made by the FCUSD, I'm almost done. Are the resulting decisions made by the FCUSD staff appropriate if there are questions regarding how the investigation was conducted? Please make the right choice today, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Charles Ellington, followed by Terrell McKeown.
Good evening, board. I just want to say before I start, I'm happy to be your Facebook friend, despite what anyone else says. I personally met Conrad while I was a student at Cordova High School, and he's been there for me as a mentor through every major milestone and struggle in my life since that point, even to this day, 13 years later. And I can honestly say that I've never met anyone more invested in the well-being and development of our community, more specifically, the well-being and protection of the students at Cordova High School. From day one, Conrad has taught me lessons in respect, integrity, and character. Never would have I expected to see Conrad treated so blatantly unfairly by the school district and by those who I once believed to be his peers. I find myself asking how. How can we allow someone who has supported our community, uplifted at-risk youth, and helped to transform them into productive members of society be pushed out in such a manner? How can we allow this to happen to someone whom I've witnessed mentor hundreds of students over the past decade and a half, all without incident? Someone who I and countless former students credit for helping change the course of their lives. It was Conrad and the students he mentored who helped lead Rancho Cordova to becoming an All-America city in 2019. It was Conrad who was pivotal in organizing the Bigs and Littles literacy program to increase the literacy of our elementary school students. And it also hurts me to say that when students have landed themselves in a difficult spot and sadly even passed away, it's Conrad who we've called to speak out and support their families. I truly believe that the way he's been treated recently is a poor reflection on our school district, and more importantly, depending on the decision of the district, a cautionary tale to anyone who thinks to voluntarily dedicate so much of their life to the service of our youth. It breaks my heart to witness over the past 18 months, Conrad continuing to find ways to support students during his suspension and still working late at night to review his program's curriculum, still trying to plan for a future despite the uncertainty of this board's decision. In my eyes, and I'm sure in the eyes of many here today, this is the last chance for FCUSD to uphold its own respect, integrity, and character. Thank you.
Thank you. Jarrell McCowan, followed by Martha Toka. Jarrell McCowan? Jared?
It's all right, I can go by Jarrell.
It says Jarrell, but I'll take it.
You gotta forgive me, I'm not really good at public speaking. But I was standing outside. Excellence, talent, opportunity, achievement, success, leadership, community, inspire, dedication, commitment, authentic, dream, performance, and exceptional.
That's this man. The only thing was missing was Conrad Mayer at the bottom. I've been living in Rancho for almost 49 years. I've never seen anybody do more for their community than Conrad. And I'd take anybody up on their offer to prove me different, but I guarantee he or she is not here. This man belongs on Mount Rushmore of Cordova. I was his neighbor for many years. My parents still live next to him on the same block. Been in law enforcement for 23 years. 4 children that I've trusted with him at many times, that he's helped me out with. I leave him in his care, no problems. I wouldn't think twice about it. This man has integrity, moral character. I could go on for days. It's unrivaled. It's a travesty that we're here for this man today, for this crap. He deserves a lot more than this. What breaks my heart, I would do anything for this man. He's my brother, been a mentor, obviously. You could fill the stadium up at Cordova if you wanted to, with people that would give witnesses to him. Just do the right thing. This man doesn't deserve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha Toka, followed by Logan Shelton.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Martha Toka, and I'm a teacher with the Elk Grove Unified School District. I first met Conrad Mayer when we were both sophomores at Cordova High School. So yes, I'm old. Conrad was the heart and soul of our class. He knew everybody, was the first to offer to help others, and stood up for students who were bullied or vulnerable. All he usually had to do was show up with those great big hands, and the bully usually backed down. Conrad is the person you call when you're stranded somewhere in the middle of the night. In my experience with him, he has never turned down one of my requests for help. Conrad loves Cordova High School, Rancho Cordova, and making a positive difference in the community. Although I cannot speak to the accusations, I have never seen Conrad behave inappropriately with females of any age. In fact, I can confidently say that Conrad Mayer is the best person I know. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan Shelton, followed by Madeline Sanderson.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Logan Shelton. Conrad Mayer was my high school mentor from 2012 to 2014, but he's been a lifelong coach. I'm 30 now, I'm getting up there. With his guidance, I became a proud recipient of the Rancho Cordova's Distinguished Teen Service Award in 2014. I have about maybe 4,000 hours of volunteering. I started when I was 8. I struggled through school. As many know in Rancho Cordova, they're our ghetto. I grew up where drive-bys were every day. I'm one of the few that were lucky to make it to where I made it. I was in and out of detention. I was labeled a problem child by all my teachers. And so eventually I discovered volunteering. And that gave me an outlet for my behavior. I looked forward to it every day after school. I went there immediately. I went there before school. I was there 5 a.m. I went to school, came back, went straight there again. However, after my family moved, I lost access to where I volunteered, and I started to spiral pretty heavily again. I think I had 77 suspensions at Cordova, I think. That's when I met Mr. Mayer in the in-house suspension room. He wasn't a school teacher, but he did more for me than most of my teachers ever did. He believed in me when others gave up. With his support, I turned my life around. Thanks to Mr. Mayer, I stayed out of trouble. I volunteered at every city event. And with his guidance and recognition of my passion of the community, I earned the Teen Service Award. And later, I went to college in the Silicon Valley. Now, with his help, I'm a senior software engineer at Sony, living my dream making games, which I wanted to do since I was a kid. Conrad Mayer is an important person in my life. He even attended my wedding. He's been a constant positive presence in my life over a decade now. And at no point has he ever acted inappropriately or said anything questionable. He's a steady and respectful mentor, someone who understands that students acting out often just need someone to believe in them. Even outside of school, at events where I was volunteering, I saw many students, past, present, female, male, parents, it didn't matter, run over just to see him, just to say thank you. They were off to college. They were living their life thanks to his help. That is something that we don't have at Cordova. We're pretty abandoned. It's been a constant problem at that school. He's one of the most dedicated and impactful mentors I've ever known, and probably one of the best parts of my life at that school. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Madeline Sanderson, followed by Logan Blower.
Flower.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. After reading through the supporting documents for today's hearing with statements that were reported, such as that he would recognize that ass from a mile away, followed by or substantially similar words to that effect, this means that was interpretational and not factual. Either he said that exact statement or he didn't. It can't be both. There was nothing shared about what the other witnesses had shared, only those who made allegations. I noticed that the OAH document shared how witnesses for the respondent, Conrad, were biased and that they undermined the witnesses' credibility. Yet the student witnesses who would have shared similar sentiments, we can clearly see how that information was not brought forth. In order for the district to not show a bias themselves, there should be a showing of all findings, not just the ones that they want the public to see. This hits home for me because a few years back, as parents, my husband Scott and I dealt with a situation regarding our son where there were allegations made followed by charges that were not right. We hired an attorney and fought for 11 months straight. I don't think anyone saw that coming. What our attorney had found was that there was discrepancy in what was presented through the information that was shared out after student interviews, among other findings, as we're now dealing with Sacramento County. I am happy to report and share that yes, the case was ultimately dismissed by the judge. Yes, our son and family grew even stronger from that entire situation, and although there was a just outcome, the damage was already done, just like the damage is being done right now for Conrad. Our son was part of the graduating class of Cordova High School just a few weeks ago, where he graduated with honors. I hope everyone in this room hears me when I say no one and no family would be willing to have their names continuously dragged through the mud if they weren't innocent. When we fight against something like this, it's because we are looking for a just outcome. We are looking for what's right to be done in the end. My mom is currently at work during this time of this hearing, but she wanted me to share a few things today, and I'm going to quickly read this. Words that come to mind when my mom thinks about Conrad are helpful, thoughtful, kind, unique, and valued. To put into perspective, my mom moved here to Rancho Cordova during her junior year of high school, with my grandfather being stationed here at Mather Air Force Base. She met Conrad at this time, and they were both part of the graduating class of '79. Over the years, they have stayed in touch, and she thinks highly of both Conrad and his wife, Melody. Years back, Conrad, along with the crew of his mock students, helped to do some yard work in my mom's front yard. She stated, quote, "I saw how Conrad interacted with the kids that helped cut down branches from my tree. They had respect for him, and he talked to them in a way that made them feel good about what they were doing," close quote. Over the past few years, I have worked closely with Conrad through RC-SAC and just serving other community in various ways. What I just shared above from my mom, I wholeheartedly echo that. I have never heard or seen him talk or act inappropriate with students or adults. I hope that our board truly listens to all of who are speaking up today and that there is a just outcome in the end. Please don't be biased. Thank you.
Mr. Blower?
Good evening, board members. My name is Logan Blower, graduate of Cordova High School, 2005. I'd prepared a speech, talking about Conrad's impact on the community and how, thinking back, I can't remember Conrad not being around and not being a big influence on the community and just so closely ingrained. But I think the rest of everyone here has done a great job of kind of exemplifying that. I just want to speak for the board itself. You guys are put in an awful position tonight, honestly. You don't have all the facts. You don't have all the information. You're reliant on staff, on council, to make this decision based on their recommendations. My profession puts me in a unique position where I've been in those closed Brown sessions as an impartial third party and had to tell board members just like you, hey, staff got it wrong. We found different. this is what happened. Those board members then relate to me. Had I had this information, my decision would have been different. Everything I'm hearing tonight, and the evidence I see, there's not a clear fact pattern. So what I imagine is going to happen, you're going to go back in your closed session, and council's going to talk about risk, exposure, lawsuits. I ask you to consider the risk to this community by not having people like Conrad, and the cooling effect of taking such action when staff may be misleading you either intentionally or not, and thinking about alternative mitigations you could have that you could take. Termination doesn't have to be the only option here. You could extend the timeline, open a new investigation, give additional training. That's all I have to say. Good luck with your decision.
Thank you. Carrie Phantom, followed by Tamara Green. I just kind of want to do a time check. I did say 90 minutes. So I think we're pretty much on track.
Hi, my name is Carrie Phantom, and I'm not going to go over all of the wonderful things that Conrad has done because everybody has, and you know all that. I'm going to give you my personal testimony. I've known Conrad since I was in 7th grade at Mills Junior High School back then. My dad was a teacher there, and our whole family, we love Conrad. He's been a member of our family for 50 years. I was a troubled child as well as a few others in my age group, and Conrad never, ever gave up on me. He's full of love for the whole community. Everybody out here, everybody, he loves all of us. No matter what we've done, no matter where we've been, he has supported each and every one of us, just like he's supporting all these teenagers at Cordova High School. So I do hope that you make the right decision and rehire him and dismiss this. It's wrong. He's a blessing. He's a blessing to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamara Green.
One more thing, since I still have a second. My dad, if he were here, he would be bellowing from the rooftops about Conrad, and if my mom were able to be here, she would as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Green, followed by Rob Borba.
Thank you. My name is Tamara Green. I've known Conrad for 50 years. He's always been an amazing friend, always, like everybody has said, always there if you needed him. Every Christmas Eve, he would call. I was a struggling single mom, and every Christmas Eve, he would call while I was wrapping gifts to see if I needed gifts, if Zoe needed anything. I trust him so much with my daughter, our granddaughters. We've taken vacations together. We've been in weddings. Female friends, raise your hands. Are you afraid of Conrad? No. Has he ever been inappropriate with you? No. Never. He's always been respectful. He's a decent human being, honest, kind of grumpy sometimes. but an honest man. He would do anything for you. He has spent minutes of every single day helping the city and helping this school and all these kids, and they're so fortunate to have had him. If I had somebody like Conrad when I was a kid, things would have been different. Things would have been different. And you need to give the man his job back. Thank you.
Rob Borba, followed by Melanie Hughes.
President Clark, board members, Eric Swanson, thank you for this time. I met, as you know, I'm greatly involved in girls softball for the last 27 years. And I first met Conrad at the OK program As my wife will attest, I've probably spent more time on Mills campus than anybody there. I'm there all the time. For 27 years, I'm there every day. And I had to say that to my coaches this week. At 71 years old, I wake up every day with the passion to deliver every day. And that is Conrad. I met him in the OK program. Mr. Clark, you probably know that program. I used to sit in the back and watch the mentors, and they left, and then Conrad filled that void. What I want to say is, as a parent, we hope that people grow up with the passion and the ability to deliver. And Conrad, your parents must be proud of you as you deliver that passion to our community. Specifically, I do want to speak about Conrad's contribution to our program. Over the years, I've watched Conrad house people that actually I employed in some of our tournaments or in our snack bar, because sometimes I needed help, and Conrad and Melody provided youth to my program, and I mentored them in learning how to deliver service in our snack bar. And during that time, I've had many conversations around youth women in how our program is. At no time have I ever heard him speak in a way that was characterized today. So I'm not here to talk about character I'm talking about what I've seen. I've never seen that in the time, so I'm done, sorry.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hughes, followed by Ethan Lamb.
Sorry. So I would have done a speech or put something together because you definitely deserve it. But as you may be able to tell, I was just released from the hospital yesterday. And the reason that I'm here is because I owe this 2 minutes to Mr. Mayor and Melody, and so does my son. So, like most of the people in this room, I was born in Rancho Cordova. My parents were the first graduating class at Cordova. I graduated in 1989. Both of my children graduated from Cordova, and hopefully my grandchildren will. My son was in Cordova. He's one of the troubled youth that you've all heard about. Going down the wrong path, making a lot of bad choices. He met Conrad in his sophomore year. Probably the biggest blessing our family's had. After meeting Conrad and having tough love, which is what Conrad gives, students who make comments about people, about teachers, about parents, often are because those individuals are holding them to a standard because they know that they can achieve those goals. That's what Conrad does. He held my son to the standard. He taught him how to be a man, how to respect his single mother, how to treat a woman. I can say that my son now is married, owns his own home, is helping raise a child on the spectrum. My son's not here because he lives in Texas, and he made me make him a promise that I would be here today on his behalf for everything that Conrad has done for him. He wouldn't be where he is today if it weren't for Conrad and Melody. And yeah, Conrad gives everything to his students, but it's way more than that. My son graduated years ago. Conrad is still part of our family. My son's coming home in a week to see his sister graduate. The 2 things he wants when he's here, he said, is to see his sister walk down the aisle and to have lunch with Conrad. That's what he has done. So you do have the choice. You could take his job. I hope you don't, because my grandkids need him. My granddaughter, I trust her with him more than anything. But you know what? You may be able to take him from that job and from my granddaughter being with him at school, but you can't take him from my family. I hope you don't make the choice for all the other families that haven't had a chance to welcome him into theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ethan Lamb, followed by Josh Mize.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Ethan Lamb, and I've just recently graduated from Cordova High School. Since before I've even attended Cordova, I've been a part of a program called MOC. During my time with MOC, I've become a leader there. I have a leadership role, and I'd like to say I'm a first-gen low-income Asian American student. During my time at MOC, I've grown into a leader because of Conrad. Conrad's an amazing person, and he's helped me show what a leader should be to all of these other students in my program as well. Sorry, this is kind of hard. If I had any issues, I could call Conrad and he'd be there to help me out immediately. When I had to relocate to a hotel for a year, I could count on Conrad to give me a ride home from mock events. I could count on him to, I don't know, if I ever needed it, maybe food, maybe anything. New clothing that I needed. He's just that type of man. In my time as a leader, peer, and friend to those students who are a part of MOC, I've never once had somebody come up to me and tell me that Conrad has made them uncomfortable, committed any sexual misconduct with them, or said anything of that nature. I believe that Conrad has always done anything with the best interests of students in mind, and he would never do anything to harm students. I would also like to point out that MOC has produced 2 of your most recent student board members from the Cordova side of the district, Van Merrill and Evelyn Lopez. And if that isn't a testament to what kind of environment this man encourages, then I don't know what is. I believe that removing Conrad from FCUSD is a complete disservice to the Cordova High School students. And that's all I'd like to say.
All right, thank you. Josh Mize, and followed by Estrella Sanchez.
Hello, honorable members of the board. My name is Josh, and I'm a proud parent of a recent graduate from Cordova High School. My daughter, a couple years ago, was in the MOC program, and she said, "Oh, Dad, I'm in the leadership mentoring program." And I go, "Oh, that's great," because I was part of one too, and I think they do really good work, and that'd be good for you, And so I said, "Yeah, go with it. I'm going to work, and I'm just hearing snippets of, what goes on it." And so she goes, "Dad, he wants to give me $500, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's good. It's like an award ceremony. I'm Native. Our Natives like giving gifts and stuff like that and ceremony." And I'm like, "It's great. Is he gonna have like a ceremony, or is there other students involved?" And so I'm like, "Okay." So I went up and talked to him, and there was, I asked him, "Is there any other students involved?" And he said, "No, I just picked her because she needed clothes." And so, I went up there and I said, "Well, I want to go up there, and talk to the man and ask, like, is there a ceremony or whatever?" And so I'm like, "Okay, there's not." And so he gave me $500 cash for her. And I was like, I thought that was kind of weird, because I'm like, I understand gift cards and incentives and all that, because I work for a 501c3, but there's got to be a paper trail. And if you don't have a paper trail, if you're giving money to just young girls, it doesn't look, I think it looks like grooming practices. And so I just wanted the board to note that. And yeah, thank you. He didn't tell me personally, though. He didn't tell me. He told my daughter. That was wrong. He should have came and told me.
Folks, we're almost at the finish line. And the conversations out there is not warranted. I mean, we gave you guys respect to talk to the board, and obviously the audience gave you that respect with no talk back. So let's do the same. Thank you. Ms. Sanchez.
Before I begin, I would like to request the respect that I was not given while being a part of the FCUSD. The time I was mistakenly suspended because your staff failed to double check my name, and even my graduation when your staff mistakenly gave my seal of biliteracy award because they had failed to check the name. My name is Estrella Archila, a proud former student of Cordova High School and a graduate of Walnutwood. I first met Mr. Mayor as a freshman while eagerly exploring Club Rush. With a group of my friends, one of my friends that enthusiastically mentioned mock as a fantastic program their older siblings had participated in during their high school years. Their glowing recommendation piqued our interest, and without hesitation, we all decided to sign up. From that point on, we attended every meeting. We attended every meeting and wholeheartedly committed ourselves to various community service events. The experiences I gained through MARC during my 2 years of active involvement not only enriched my high school journey, but also allowed me to grow personally and socially. I want to take a moment to emphasize that throughout my entire time in MARC and every interaction I had with Mr. Mayor, I have never at any point in my life felt uncomfortable around him. On the contrary, he created an environment that was welcoming, respectful, supportive, fostering a sense of belonging for every student involved. Mr. Mayor played a pivotal role, not only in my life, but also in my brother's academic journey. His unwavering support and guidance were instrumental in helping my brother graduate from high school. Mr. Mayor provided the encouragement, motivation, and resources needed for my brother to overcome his academic challenges and reach his goals. His dedication went beyond academics. His dedication went beyond academics as he also showed genuine concern for our personal growth and well-being. As my own life grew busier with increasing responsibilities and commitments, Mr. Mayor's influence remained a steady source of inspiration. His dedication and passion for helping students succeed were qualities I deeply admired. He was more than an educator. He was a mentor. He was a role model. He was a pillar of support. Mr. Mayor's mentorship instilled in me the importance of perseverance, leadership, and community service, values that have become a foundation of the person I am today. His guidance encouraged me to face challenges with resilience, to lead with integrity, and to give back to my community with a generous heart. Reflecting on my experiences, I am profoundly grateful for the positive impact Mr. Mayor has had in my life and the lives of countless other students. His dedication to education, his commitment to student success, and his genuine kindness that continues to inspire me every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Lupe Hernandez, followed by Larry Ladd.
Good afternoon, board members, superintendent, President Clark. My name is Lupe Treviso Hernandez. My husband and our family, our children and now grandchildren, have lived in Rancho Cordova over 49 years. In the time that we've known Conrad and Melody has been exceptional and rewarding. We're here in support to verbalize how we feel and to demonstrate an action that Conrad did on one particular day in the school year of 2017-2018. I have notes, but I can say this from memory, that Conrad has constantly been engaged, protective, and fatherly to students. That's it, no more. He hasn't overstepped. He hasn't done something that is inappropriate. We never felt that with him. I trusted my children, my grandchildren, with the school district. But in 1998, when you had a football coach telling students verbal, vulgar words that was inappropriate, nobody did anything. But on this particular day, there was in 2018, there was a criminal running rampant, running free, a criminal running from Hagen Community Park to Cordova High School campus. In a panic, I called Conrad. I wanted to know where my granddaughter was. Very sternly, Conrad responded, "She's here with the others. They're safe. They're gonna have to get through me to get to them." The door was locked. He protected our children. There was a gunman running on campus. That is integrity. He is a hero. He is a man of his word. When he says he will protect not only our students,
Ms. Hernandez will have to cut it short.
our families, he did. Do the right thing. Please take care of business. Do not dismiss him as if he were an old rag. Please continue his employment. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Leroy Ladd, and there's some people in this audience who are like, oh God, what's he gonna say? The first thing I'll tell you is Conrad Mayer is an extrovert. That he would offer a ride to a student, there's absolutely no sinister aspect of that. That I will vouch for. Saying that I have crossed swords with Conrad. I have taken students into Key Club who did not like Conrad. He was too authoritarian and we were loosey-goosey, that you give kids a choice, right? And we had a turf battle about whether Key Club or Interact can send volunteers to Cordova Gardens, et cetera, et cetera. You and I, Mr. Clark, have crossed swords at one time or another. I've crossed swords with Shelley Blanchard. Yes, there she goes, she's right there. And I'm not done with David yet. That being said, at City Council, we're talking about a city councilman can fire a planning commissioner if they want to. You guys can fire an employee if you don't like the way they walk down the hall, all right? And in terms of this community, you gotta understand, I mean, David makes a profession of beating up on bureaucrats, but bureaucrats are reacting to events. And to this community, I have to point out, the press coverage on Steve Kester was not real favorable, okay? So you might consider there's an overreaction going on here. Okay. I'm gonna finish with. Okay, so the accusations, I leave the attorneys. It's all about what the evidence is. And my time's done? No, I got 9 seconds. It's a tough decision, guys, but take really close. I'll finish with, I make women uncomfortable because I take 4 turns to get to my house, and if I follow them for 3 turns, they start freaking out. So there's a weird man in Ranch Cordova following me. So take a good close look at the evidence and decide, but it is a tough decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it takes care of all these. However, we have 3 raised hands on Zoom, and I would like to extend their time to make a public comment. They do have 2 minutes. Let's go. No, they're not. Oh, there they are. Tina Aldama. Miss Tina?
Good evening, board members. My name is Tina Aldama. I worked with Rancho Cordova PAL and California PAL from 2016 to 2025. Over the course of those 10 years, I had the opportunity to work in collaboration with Conrad Mayer and his mock program on numerous occasions. Whether it was organizing youth events, participating in mentorship programs, or simply being present for the community, through it all, I witnessed a man who consistently led with selflessness, pride, and unwavering passion for the youth and families of Rancho Cordova. Conrad is not just a public servant, he's a role model. He's gone above and beyond his duties to make sure young people in our community feel seen, supported, and valued. His involvement wasn't performative, it was personal. He showed up early, stayed late, and never sought praise for his efforts. He's inspired both kids and colleagues through his integrity, dedication, and heart. To question his character on commitment now would not only be a grave injustice to Conrad, but it would also be a disservice to the very community he has spent decades uplifting. He deserves to be recognized for exactly what he is, a shining pillar in Rancho Cordova and a mentor to many. I ask that you take this into consideration as you consider the impact of your decisions, not just on one man, but on the entire community that he has helped shape. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. I have Dean. Dean, are you there?
I am, but my name's not Dean. My name is Rochelle Wellams. Dean is my husband. He actually had to leave. We are both the directors of RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awakening. And first of all, just want to say to the board members, wow, tough decision. And honestly, there's a lot of people out there who would say, you know what, you're already going in one direction. Definitely stay with that because it would be easier. And yet I really caution you. Why do we keep going with what's easier? Already we've proven that the findings in this case are flawed. What I can tell you is this. I work with teenagers across the country. I speak at high schools and middle schools. I am also the director of RYLA, Regal, ABO, and numerous other programs. I met Conrad about 17 years ago, and he's a man whose heart is in everything he does. And this is what I want to share because I think it's important that you recognize what you could be losing. You have an individual who every single time that he sent students to RYLA, he called me in advance. Hey, this student, his dad's not in the picture, and he really struggles with feeling like he's important enough. I'm really hoping this program will help him realize just how incredible he is. Hey, Rochelle, this young lady is coming. She has made such academic strides. Make sure we celebrate her. Everything about Conrad is about taking care of others. Conrad actually has been one of our learning facilitators in our program for 11 years, and he actually did it 12 times because we had another learning facilitator who had to cancel at the last moment. And so Conrad, in true Conrad fashion, turned around and came back. That's who he is. And while he's been dragged through the mud for what 5 15-year-olds said, that was brought about by faulty questioning. Recognize this. Conrad has been dealing with his own health problems, and none of this has made it better. My husband and
We
I,
have to wrap it up, ma'am.
we stand with Conrad. Please make the right decision.
Thank you. And last but not least, Vanessa Martinez.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Martinez, and I have known Conrad now for approximately 18 years, since I was in the 7th grade. Conrad, as we have been hearing for the last couple of hours, is someone who is beloved, someone who has always been known to be honorable, respectful, trustworthy. And I am one of the people, one of the youth at the time that can proudly say that Conrad is one of the major reasons that the city of Rancho Cordova is what it is. He has worked effortlessly and tirelessly to make sure that every youth has the opportunity to be someone that they maybe don't get the chance to be. I can proudly say that Conrad went from being a mentor to being a friend to being someone who I see as a father figure. Him and Melody have been influential in my life to this day. I have never witnessed him to be anything other than what we have all testified here today. And it is with utmost importance to recognize that someone who is anything opposite than the man he has been painted to be would not be here with a room full of people supporting him. We all love him. We are proud to know him. And we know that the programs that he participates in, the people he has worked with would not be the same without him. And so today we all ask you, board members, as difficult as it may be, to make the right decision and to not punish somebody for something that is not the truth. Because we all know Conrad, we know his heart, and we know who he is as a person, as a human being. And that is why we are all here today, proudly supporting him. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thanks to everyone who came out this evening to make a public comment. Yes. Didn't see it. Name? Sure, why not?
Okay. Hi. I am Lori Parker, and I've known Conrad almost 40 years, and I feel like I should be presenting him with a Lifetime Achievement Award because I've never heard so many wonderful things said about an individual. I can honestly say I knew Conrad in my 20s, and I was a number then, but never was he inappropriate. The 80s were a different time where, guys were kind of like that. And Conrad, he just wasn't that blood type, and he's never been. He's always been a safe space for our youth and our adults in this community. And I hope that you take this time to really absorb everything, all the words have been thrown at you tonight. It really is an important decision for even your children or maybe your grandchildren who might attend Cordova or one of our other schools in this district to have the same opportunity to work with someone like Conrad, and who better to have that Conrad teach upcoming mentors and keeping him in the district. So I have to say that as a victim of a violent situation, I have that instinct in vetting. You develop an instinct when you're a victim of a certain assault, and you have that instinct where you can vet people. And Conrad does not have that. There are a number of people that do, and you have this instinct, and Conrad is truly a safe space. That's just coming from my opinion, and I've known him for almost 40 years. So as the last person, I'm hoping that I can get a round of applause for Conrad, because he's been through hell being accused of these allegations that I feel are false. Thank you.
Oh, hello.
I'm trying to summarize this so I don't take longer than it has already been. My name is Alexandra, and I may have not known Conrad for as long as everyone else, but I saw for the last 2 years I saw him as and sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. For a leader that he was. In the MAC program at Cordova High School, he created a safe place for everyone. I will forever be grateful because I never in a club I felt more safe than it was there. I always recommended it to everyone I knew because the way he made me feel, not all teachers even did. He always attempted to help students, never harm them or with even the intent. His encouragement had helped not only me personally, but many other students on campus to continue their hard work in schools and in the community. As many know, Mr. Conrad is a respectful man in our community. His hard work and dedication are undeniable. He's truly done everything for this community and the people. Just looking through the papers that were given out, like I'm speaking with pride because I'm really inspired by him to do as much and give back to the community. His achievements inspire me to be like him. As a former student, I will forever cherish him for his kindness and help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That will conclude our public comment. We will now close out open session and head back into the back for deliberation. To our facilitators, I do apologize, but we'll, it looks like we'll be here all night, so we'll be okay. Anyway, decisions need to be made, discussions need to be had. So we'll go back, and with that being said, close out, and we'll head into closed session for deliberations. And if you can take roll real quick, just for the record.
Ms. Lofthouse.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Charlam Churla.
Here.
Ms. Larrett.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. All right, we will report out of closed session. Kim, the floor is yours.
We're good? Okay. So the board requires additional time to review the record in its entirety, and therefore this matter will be continued to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Because it's a continuation, there will not be public comment on the topic again. It's simply a closed session portion for additional consideration of the record.
Thank you, ma'am. With that being said, we will have final comments from the board. I will take time to apologize to our facilitators, as we were going to have a board workshop today. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We will reschedule at another time, but I do appreciate you coming out and taking part of this meeting. To the audience, I appreciate you coming out, giving your comments. The board has taken this issue very seriously. We will look at everything before making a determination. With that being said, I do ask you for your patience in this process. It is a process, as all cases are. So with that being said, Superintendent, did you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Final board comments?
I don't have any comments.
All right.
No comments.
All right.
Nope.
No comments? All right. Nothing else for the good of the order. I hereby adjourn this meeting.